In the decades since the world became aware of the existence of magic, the world has undergone a massive upheaval. However, a boy named Tuta lives in seclusion in a rural town, far removed from these changes. His ordinary life is highlighted by his magic-using female teacher and his supportive friends. The story begins at a school with Professor Negi walking in and being greeted by his students. One by one they say good morning to him, even the members of the library club. But suddenly, he had to sneeze, and it was so powerful that it blew off the clothes of all the girls. This pisses off Asuna that she charges after him and beats him up. Then we meet Evangeline. She's been alive for over 700 years, but immortality isn't as good as it sounds, because she always has to say goodbye to everyone she built relationships with because they die and she is forced to live on. Back at the school, Professor Yukihime was walking down the road when she suddenly gets ambushed by some students and Tuta that don't like her, but using her magic, she makes them all look like idiots and dump them in the water. In class, Yukihime is teaching and punishing Tuta and his friends for their attack earlier. Tuta protests, saying that she never told them she could use magic and that's not fair. As they keep ranting about wanting to go to the capital, the rest of the students push their desks out of the way, giving Yukihime a clear line to him, and she gets so angry that she gives them 3 times the amount of chores, and her anger causes the classroom to explode to the outside. Later on, Yukihime is talking to another teacher, Tachibana, who reminds her that even though she is Tuta's foster mum, she should be less strict and let him explore the world more because he needs to experience different things. Tuta is outside, taking a walk with his friends as they talk about Yukihime using magic. Almost everyone in the capital already knows how to use magic, and some apps are being developed that let regular people use magic as well after it was discovered around 10 years ago. They think about buying the apps to fight Yukihime, but they are so expensive that Tuta says it's best if they beat her the old-fashioned way to go and explore the capital. They want to go climb the very tall tower known as the orbital elevator or the pillar of heaven. But before they could start training, Tuta runs off, leaving them. Tuta is at a gravesite where his parents are buried, along with his grandfather Negi. It's been over 2 years since they died in the car crash, and now he can't even remember their faces due to the memory loss caused by the accident. Yukihime adopted him after that, and they've been living together ever since. As he gets up to leave, Tuta sees someone in a vision who calls him to the tower but soon disappears. That night, Tuta is loving the food that he made and uses it to try and trick Yukihime into teaching him some magic, but she says no. They keep trying to beat her, but they get beaten up all the time. Tachibana offers to teach them some magic, but it's a bit underwhelming. But Tuta has a poor affinity to magic, but Tachibana gives him a bracelet just for that purpose, so he could give it to Yukihime. Tuta is at home, looking at the bracelet, when he gets startled by her, and he just pretends to give her the bracelet like it's a gift. The next day, Yukihime is walking out of the store when the boys attack her, using portals, but Tuta isn't there yet because he can't use magic. She is impressed that they got magic apps to fight her. Suddenly, Tachibana arrives and knocks them all out because it was his plan all along to catch her. She tries to use her magic to defend herself, but the bracelet keeps her from using it. He is a bounty hunter, and there is a $6 million bounty on her head. Tuta finally gets there to try and stop Tachibana, but all he does is get his arm cut off by the bounty hunter. But before he could kill Tuta, Yukihime comes in to block the blow, despite being bound by magic and having lots of arrows in her. But that didn't do anything as Tachibana cuts her to pieces and kills Tuta. Tachibana is walking over to Tuta's friends to kill them too. But Yukihime had decided to turn him into an immortal monster 2 years ago without him knowing. All he had to do was drink her blood. She tells him she's proud of him as she passes away, and he licks some of her blood and manages to get up. Tachibana tries to stop him, but Tuta punches him so hard he ends up hitting the car parked far away. Tuta then hears Yukihime's voice and suddenly wakes up to find himself in her arms. He is now an immortal, and because of his actions, she is also just fine. Her real name is actually Evangeline, and she is a 700-year-old vampire. She saved him from the accident by turning him into a vampire. She gets a little upset because she had to turn him into a vampire without his will, but he seems okay with it. He's more happy to see her alive than anything else. Soon, Tuta and Evangeline are saying goodbye to his friends because they're headed to the capital because she's been found out to be a vampire. He is very excited to go, but keeps the reason a secret from her. They start their journey to New Tokyo, but the road is empty since the population is low. They have to walk there since they have to stay away from bounty hunters, but Tuta is too excited to let that get to him. He wants to make new friends, but she mentions that he can't get too attached to people because he is immortal now, and his friends will die while he lives on. He won't even get to grow up. As he flows down the stream, he runs into a naked woman. She gets her sword and swings it at him, but it turns out this was a boy, Kurumaru. After they meet, Tuto tells him about the journey he's on and learns that Kurumaru came from above. His family is rich, but they have asked him out until he finds a certain woman, someone called the Dark Evangel. As he talks, he notices that Tuta has no shadow. As Evangeline walks out of the store holding drinks, Kurumaru attacks, but she blocks it with ease. Kurumaru doesn't stop and attacks, but Evangeline puts him down with ease. Tuta is mad at her, but she already knows that Kurumaru is an immortal as well, and he gets up pretty quickly. Kurumaru remembers getting the mission from his brother, Kiromaru, who told him to not come back unless he kills Evangeline. Evangeline then gives Kurumaru a challenge, fighting Tuta to get to her. Kurumaru attacks, but Tuta dodges them quickly and adds a condition to the fight. The winner gets to demand without the loser. Kurumaru didn't think Tuta would be this good of a fighter, and even Evangeline is enjoying the show. Kurumaru then manages to cut off his head, but Tuta just grabs it and puts it back on, winning the fight. Kurumaru thinks Tuta wanted something weird, but all Tuta wants is for Kurumaru to be his friend. Tuta is relaxing in the water when Kurumaru comes out, and he visibly hates this arrangement, but they signed a contract to be friends. As Tuta keeps talking, Kurumaru hits him with a bucket and finally gets in the water to relax. They talk about Kurumaru's clan, and Kurumaru tells Tuta that his clan is uncomfortable with Kurumaru being an immortal, and so they made him do this mission to earn his place. Tuta then offers him to stick with them and ditch his old clan, but Kurumaru denies his offer. Tuta has another idea. He wants to climb the cliff and get a look at the girls' bathing area. They argue about wanting to go, and Kurumaru is very much against the idea, but Tuta races up the slope and jumps in the water. But there is one woman he doesn't exactly recognize sitting there. It's actually Evangeline in her true form, and the older version is just a disguise. Tuta is feeling weird about seeing her like that, but she uses her magic to show him her true power until he falls over the cliff. Kurumaru catches him before he hits the ground. He then throws him into the air to get Evangeline's towel. He wins, but he doesn't want to see her body. This pisses her off and gets him punished. This made Kurumaru smile and finally accept the friendship in his heart. He also accepts to go on the journey with the two. Even Evangeline wants Kurumaru to be her student. The three get on the road, and Kurumaru appreciates the opportunity given to him by Evangeline. They start walking, but Tuta is running out of patience because he wants to get to the capital as soon as possible. Then another thought strikes Tuta's head. If they ran into Kurumaru this quickly, then it must mean that there are a lot more immortals out there in the world. This gives him another idea, to gather a bunch of immortals and put together a super team. He wants to put them all together and use their powers to do some good for the world. This makes Evangeline chuckle because she knows someone who said the exact same thing before. But a bunch of cars cut her off mid-sentence. One of the cars comes swerving and hits Tuta. The man walking out of it introduces himself as a servant of Evangeline. Karin follows him and knees before Evangeline, happy to see her mistress again. A bunch of cars come by and even roll out a red carpet for her, but Tuta is confused by the treatment his guardian is getting. Karin confronts him, but Evangeline plays it off. But before she walks over to the car, she tells Tuta that they have already formed an organization of immortals, UQ Holder. They're on the boat now and headed to the capital, much to Tuta's excitement. Karin doesn't like Tuta and thinks he doesn't deserve to become immortal, much less using the blood of the great Evangeline. They reach the organization's secret headquarters, and Tuta is already very excited about it. The agents are very happy that Evangeline is back, and they surround her. While Kurumaru and Tuta talk about everyone here being vampires, Gengaru comes up behind them, saying there are many types of immortals, and not all of them are vampires. Tuta wants to join the organization, but there is a test before he becomes a member. But Evangeline has another challenge for them, to fight one of the members and land a strike, and they can get in. Kurumaru will take on Gengaru, and Tuta will take on Karin. He tries to jump at her, but she just hits him in the head pretty easily. Both of them couldn't beat their assigned fighters and are trying to come up with a plan when a woman servant, Shinobu, comes by carrying bags of trash and falls over. So they help her with the bags. She works at the local inn, but she doesn't have powers and she isn't immortal like the rest. They offer to help her more, and she gets them to carry some big boxes of dishes. They walk into a creepy house, thinking this is where the plates belong. They get down the stairs and end up in some weird place. They see a sword and an older man, Jinbei, who is the second highest ranked immortal after Evangeline, but the boys are not that impressed by him. He tells Tuta to pull on the sword, and he can even take it if it lets him. This is a magical sword, carved by a dark mage. They left it here because it is difficult to use without the right person. Tuta pulls it, but it doesn't budge, until he turns the small switch and it pulls right out. The sword had been talking to him this whole time, making him freak out. When Jinbei throws the sword back to Tuta, it weighs like a ton. They can change the weight of the sword pretty easily by using the dial. They are impressed, but they do need to train very hard to learn how to handle such an impressive weapon. They practice day and night, and Jinbei likes them, but Evangeline still isn't sure about the boys passing the test. They keep fighting with each other and keep getting better until the final day of the test arrives. Gengoru and Kurumaru face each other and are ready to fight, and Kurumaru takes off to attack. At the same time, Tuta finds Karin and strikes at her with the gravity sword. She's impressed, but still blocks it. Gengoru is giving advice to Kurumaru while they fight, and Kurumaru has no idea how to land a strike on Gengoru, who thinks Kurumaru is too nice, which keeps him from becoming a great swordsman. But Kurumaru finds an opening and hits him with the decapitated arm. Gengoru is one of the immortals that has many lives like a video game, and he gets up right away after losing one life. Kurumaru has made it and thanks Gengoru for the praise. Tuta, on the other hand, is battling hard against Karin, but can't seem to land a single blow, despite his speed and his new sword. He manages to trip her, and just as he was about to land his strike, he hears Shinobu screaming in the distance. She is surrounded by monsters with acid venom, but as he was about to hit them, Karin comes over and stops him. Because he will harm Shinobu also, Karin uses her skills to get the monsters away from Shinobu. But one monster stays, and Tuta takes care of it pretty easily and saves Shinobu. Gengoru and Kurumaru quickly show up after hearing all the commotion. But Tuta didn't need their help, and he used the sword's biggest weight to crash into the ground to kill all the monsters. Karin is upset that he used too much power. Also, while smashing up the monsters, Karin admits to Evangeline that it could be counted as a strike on her also, letting him win the challenge and earn his entrance into the UQ holders. The monsters escape the underground by a crack that the two created while practicing. But Evangeline lets it go because she has sealed it, but still tells the two to fix what they ruined and wipe out the monsters. She also sends Jinbei down there for stealing her drink. There are thousands of monsters down there, and they have lots of work to do. After some time, Evangeline calls on the boys to give them an assignment. Karin thinks it might be too soon for them, but Evangeline is sending her along with them. This will be the perfect job for them as beginners. They will be escorting Karin on this mission. Shinobu is worried about the mission, but he assures her that it will be fine, and he will even bring her a gift. Karin takes the boys through the jungle, and Tuta is disappointed because he thought they would be driving there. They are going to the slums of the city to get rid of the bad people who want to kill all the poor people. The UQ holders stand by the poor, forgotten, and anyone who can't defend themselves. Karin isn't as heartless as she seems, and Tuta notices this and tries to point it out until she hits him with her hammer and wipes him out. They make it past the woods and reach the bad guys with Tuta jumping the gun and attacking his own people without checking who they are first. The three do an arm wrestling competition and both Karin and Kurumaru destroy Tuta. And now he has to be in charge of the cooking. Surprisingly, he makes great food, and everyone seems to love it so much that they even forgive him for his actions earlier. Even Karin thinks he is a good cook and tells him he should do this as a job. He tries to fight back, but they all ignore him and focus on the great food that's in front of them. After the food, Kurumaru, Mikan, and Karin are outside looking over at the slums. Kurumaru had no idea it was this bad. The population is passing 2 million, and it's starting to get worse. This has made the rich people of the city come in and force them out. This is what made Mikan and her orphanage reach out to the QU holders for help. Tuta is training near some trash and trying to get the flash step down when he wakes Kaito, a martial arts expert, who tells Tuta that he's doing his move all wrong because he shouldn't be kicking up that much dust while flash stepping. He shows Tuta how it's really done, which shows Tuta that this is a great technique to learn because it can become useful in many situations. Kaito then gives him pointers on how to use it to win at arm wrestling as well. He can use the power of the earth to support himself while he arm wrestles. It sounds vague to him, but Kaito assured him that he knows what he's talking about because he can do more with his feet than Tuta originally thought, like leaping through the air. Kaito likes Tuta and wants to teach him some flash stepping. Later that night, Tuta uses his feet to cook dinner, but everyone still loves it. He even eats with his feet now. The next day, Kaito is with Tuta, again practicing flash stepping. He shows him new tricks to improve, to use his feet almost like he uses his hands. This prompts Tuta to train his feet, doing everything with them that normally require hands, like strings, eating, and even brushing his teeth. Kurumaru is a little hurt that Tuta didn't ask him to teach him the flash step, but Tuta thinks it's better to learn from someone else. Later on, Kaito meets with Nagumo, who is standing with Chao near a cliff. He tells them about Tuta and that he's been teaching him a few things. Nagumo tells him to not get attached to the people from the slums because they're about to be wiped out. But Kaito already knows this because he is a shapeshifter that transforms into a giant wolf. Chao is excited about getting to kill all those people, but especially the immortals since these three are immortal hunters. The next morning, the guards are getting fed up with watch duty as they are hungry, but Tuta and his new friend come by with some food. They can't help but love the food, but it distracts them enough for the hunters to get the jump on them. Weird-looking kids kill the guards using guns. Karen is in the shower with Mikan waiting outside. Karen is not sure, but Mikan assures her that this is the least they could do after she helped out their orphanage. As she washes up, Chao sneaks in using his magic and tries to shoot her from behind, but she is too quick for him. He's impressed by her skills, and he isn't shot either because he caught the bullets with his knife. She figures that something bad must have gone on outside for him to sneak all the way in here, but she doesn't care to ask, and the fight goes on pretty well, and he lands a blow on her neck, but as he gets more aggressive, she stops him, but he pulls out a gun and shoots her in the mouth. She has no marks, but she feels the pain. Tuta and his new friend, and they're hunting for scraps when they spot smoke coming from the slums that are being set by the weird kids. Tuta can't get a hold of anyone, and the weird kids jump out from behind, but Tuta kicks them back, and Kurumaru finds them too, and tells him what's going on. More weird kids called puppets come from over the hill, but that's not all. Kaito is also here in his wolf form, along with Nagumo. Kaito figures out that Tuta is a vampire, and uses a special move to incapacitate him. Kurumaru is left, and Nagumo knows exactly where he was trained. Kurumaru is alone, but he has no other option but to fight them both alone. Back at the bathhouse, Karen and Chao are fighting hard until he manages to tie her down and uses his knife to pierce her chest. Kurumaru is fighting with Kaito now, and Nagumo also joins in the fight, cutting off Kurumaru's arm. Kaito can also reattach severed limbs, but not as quickly as Kurumaru. Kaito then uses the flash step to come up behind Kurumaru and strike him down. Things don't look so good for the UQ holders at the moment. Kurumaru is hurt, and Kaito is wailing on him hard and kicks half of his body to the other side of the scrapyard. Kurumaru is still being held down, but the magic used by Kaito, but as he tries to think of a way to free Tota, the little kid steps between them and Kaito to try and protect his town and his friends. In 1492, in southern Europe, a girl was tortured and burned by the church, but still survived and was taken away by a blonde little girl. That was Karen, and Chao is having a lot of fun torturing her as he has her tied up. He is fascinated by how nothing is happening, no matter how much he stabs her, but she is in terrible pain. He's almost upset that she is still trying to save people after all the bad things that they have done to her. Back in the scrapyard, the kid attacks Kaito, but he gets caught immediately. His people are here illegally and using the land that the rich people own, and they want it back, even though they live on Mars now. But before Kaito could strike down the kid, Tuta got in the way of the blow using his newfound powers. Chao has finally discovered that he can't hurt her physically, but he can try to break her spirit. He's been obsessed with her for a long time, and now is his chance to do everything he wants with her. But she doesn't give up and breaks free and hits him in the groin. She has holy power and uses it to beat down Chao. She kicks him over and over until he can't take any more and leaves him. Nagumo is confused because he can't figure out how Tota managed to get up from the cross seal, let alone with better powers. But Tota is pissed off now and hits Kaito so hard that he throws him clear across the yard along with Nagumo. Kaito is more excited to fight someone with more power because he loves a challenge and jumps at Tota, but he's too powerful now and takes care of him very quickly. This gets Kaito even more excited, but then Karen shows up and now it's 2-on-2. Kaito and Tuta punch each other, and Kaito is surprised by how powerful Tuta has become in such a short time. He even offers Tuta to become his own apprentice and even an ally, but Tuta doesn't accept, so Kaito uses his flash step to grab Tuta's hair out of his chest and crush it. But then something else appears behind Tuta as he gets even more powerful. Nagumo knows exactly what is happening. Magia Arabia, the dark magic that holds the very secret of immortality, corrupts the soul of anyone who uses it. The previous users were Evangeline and her friend. Tuta is too powerful now and beats on Kaito hard. Nagumo thinks Tuta must be stopped now before he gets too powerful, but Karen stops him because this is the responsibility of the UQ holders. Tota was about to kill Kaito when he stopped himself because he didn't see himself becoming a brutal killer. Kaito, on the other hand, tries to convince him to do it because he always wanted to go out in a glorious battle. Tota manages to fight off the darkness, but now he can't heal properly because that is the source of his immortality. Kaito accepts defeat to the darkness, but that doesn't go well with Tota, and they end up in an arm wrestling contest. Kaito is doing this so the fight can be fair, and Tota can feel like he won using his own strength and technique, and not just the power of the darkness. Nagumo is surprised that a kid like Tota is managing to keep all that darkness inside, and even Karin is surprised by it. Kaito gives him the last bit of advice on flash stepping before their match starts, telling him the secret is to believe that he is the only one standing, and draw all the power from the earth into himself. The coin drops, and the match starts, and Kaito almost wins, but Tota manages to stop him just in time. Tota is disguised by the actions of Kaito, wanting to become a hired mercenary and wanting to die in filthy slums with no care for other people. Tota beats Kaito, but without using his dark powers. This makes things even more interesting. Tota is not going to kill Kaito, so Nagumo will take him. Besides, their mission is a success because they managed to burn down most of the slums. As the villagers watch their town being burned down, Evangeline comes to use her ice powers to put out the fire in one simple move. Nagumo and Evangeline know each other from a previous battle, but that's a story for another time. She came after the fireworks signal that Kuramaru set off during the battle. Nagumo opens a portal and escapes through it with Kaito. Later, everyone is eating and finally relaxed. That's when Tota asks Evangeline about the dark power that came out of him. This power must have come from Evangeline's blood after she turned him immortal. The town's children want to celebrate being safe, and even Karin is smiling after the battle, but someone from above is watching them. After some time, back at the base, Kuramaru is talking to the sword, which is upset for not being brought to the fight. Kuramaru asks about Magia Arabia, and the sword tells him that it is a power, because he doesn't think the powers are that simple enough to be inherited, and something bad might happen to Tota because of it. The sword makes a joke about Kuramaru liking Tota, but that just freaks him out, and he puts the sword in the ground and runs away. Kuramaru gets to a cliff and sees Tota get on a jet ski with Shinobu. She made it by putting different parts together. She wants to engineer her own hover bike and enter into the big solar race held every few years. That is the real reason that she came to this city, but it is looking like just a dream at the moment. The two bond over her dream as Kuramaru watches on, feeling a little hurt. Later on, Kuramaru is taking a shower when he realizes that he might have feelings for Tota. Suddenly, Karin barges into the room looking for Kuramaru and sees something curious and asks if he is actually a boy, and that's when the truth comes out. Kuramaru is a member of a clan of demi-humans that don't have genders until they get to the age of puberty, making Kuramaru genderless for now and will choose a gender at the 16th birthday. Karin then confronts Kuramaru with a battle to see what he chooses, male or female. She also wants him to admit to his feelings about being in love with Tota. Iku has been watching all of this from the balcony and lands using his rocket boots and arms. He doesn't like that Karin is trying to force Kuramaru to make a decision. Kuramaru is scared that he might leak the secret, but Iku won't tell anyone about what he heard earlier. He also has a plan to help Kuramaru. Tota is dusting the house when he sees a beautiful girl looking for him. This is actually Kuramaru dressed as a girl with a blonde hair color. Kuramaru introduces himself as Kuryu, the cousin of Kuramaru. Tota wants to put her in Kuramaru's room, but she finally gets the courage to ask him to show her around the city, and he accepts despite not knowing much about the city. Karin and Iku are spying on the conversation, and as they leave, Karin asks him to come with her on a job, and he reluctantly agrees. Later on, Shinobu offers her bike to the two to take around town, and they accept. They spot a girl sitting next to a tree, but ignore her, and leave while the girl breathes heavily as she writes the letters MBS in the sand. Tota and Kuryo take the bike over the water. It's banged up a bit, but it gets the job done. They get to the city and do some sightseeing and get some food too. They walk along the street, and while Kuramaru starting to believe her feelings, she trips and falls down. Her shoe is snapped, but Tota puts her on a bench and fixes it for her. She feels a rush in her heart as he fixes her shoe. He finishes, and that's when she asks to go to the tower, and he accepts, but they don't notice Chao spying on them from the trees. Evangeline and Jinbei are having a serious conversation about the Magia Arabia power that Tuta showed. She knew he would have the power, but didn't realize that he would wield it with such ease and flair. He makes jokes about Tuta going out on a date, but she is not in the mood for a joke at all, so he quickly stops. She's also worried about another man making a move on Tuta, Fate Avarunkus. Tuta and Kurumaru are at the tower, and he is so excited, and she likes that too, but he shouldn't be this excited about the observation deck. He always wanted to get to the top of the tower, but he can't tell her the real reason. So he lies and says it's because of a promise he made to his friends from the countryside. He misses his friends, but he now has new friends like Kurumaru, who's his best friend. This causes a question to arise in Kurumaru's head, who thinks perhaps Tuta wants him to stay a boy to stay his best friend. Tuta was excited to see the clouds when Kurumaru asks him if he is interested in women, and he tells her she is cute, and that sends so many thoughts to her head. But before she spirals out of control, Tuta goes off to get them something to drink, but she grabs him from the back to tell him something important, but something else catches their eye, the bright sun. That's when Chao shows up, but Tuta smacks him away. He ties him up, and when Kurumaru goes to defend, she's stopped by a six-armed man, Asura. Kurumaru feels weak. She thinks perhaps this is due to her using a girl's form right now. They were just supposed to track Tuta until Chao saw an opportunity to attack and capture him, but Asura doesn't like going off script like that. But before they could leave, Kurumaru gets at them and tries to free Tuta, but now this means Asura doesn't have to hold back and pushes her out of the window and ties her up too. But just before she slips into the shadow, she gathers enough energy from her feelings for Tuta and breaks free and hits Chao. She comes out as her original male Kurumaru and rescues Tuta, but right after that, Asura leaves as the police come rushing in. Kurumara then tells him that he saved him and sent his cousin somewhere safe. He then promises to himself to stay by Tuta's side, no matter if he is a boy or a girl. But Tuta drops a bombshell on him when he says he wants to marry someone like his cousin. Back at the UQ compound, the girl is drawing the same thing again, telling Iku that something big is about to happen soon. At the compound, Karin and Iku run into Kurumaru and Tuta. Karin takes Kurumaru and asks about what happened during the date, but they can't talk about it now. Tuta recognizes the girl, and Iku introduces her as Kiri. She wants to talk to Tuta alone. Kiri manages to get him alone, and she knows him from somewhere and gets him on his knees and tries to step on his face before he stops her and asks what is going on. But before she could explain anything, something cuts her neck. Tuta spots Chao but can't leave Kiri here. He holds her hand, but it's too late and she dies. But something glitches, and Kiri brings them back in time to when they met. Iku and Karin float over on a boat and ask him how he made it back so quickly from his date with Kurumaru's cousin, and before he could tell them what happened, Kiri stomps on his feet and stops him from telling them her powers. Karin and Iku talk about Kari on the boat and think she can only tell the future and use it to avoid her death. In truth, she uses the sand mounds as her save points, and they stay active as long as the fire burns, and she can return to it when she dies, and she can bring back with her whoever is touching her at her death. He thinks she's very powerful, but to her, she has to die over and over again, and that hurts. She died 7 times in that same spot where he kept leaving her to chase after Chao, but she went through with it because she needed to get to him. He is the center of everything that is about to happen, but he doesn't know it yet. Later on, Tuta finds Kurumaru, and they end up in the same spot as before, with Karin asking Kurumaru what happened on the date. Kiri gets him back to the spot where she gets killed, but this time, he saves her by kicking Chao into some trash. He goes into his shadow and appears from behind, but Tuta was ready for him with his sword, who is excited to be out and finally be used for a fight. Tuta attacks with the biggest weight and smacks Chao into the sky. Now time can go in the normal path, and Kiri warns Tuta about a man named Fate, a powerful mage that is going to kidnap him. She and Kurumaru are talking when she hears Iku telling her to get out of the cafe, but something blows up. They rush over to see Fate holding Tuta by the neck. Iku tries to use his powers to free him, but Fate is much too powerful for him, and even for Karin, who he makes disappear into a portal. This makes Kurumaru jump down to get to Tuta, but Fate takes him down easily and quickly teleports behind Kiri to petrify her, so she can't go back in time, but she stabs herself in the neck to come back to where she is now, to tell Tuta what happened. Fate is the most powerful being on the planet, and he has turned from hero to enemy of humanity. She tells him she doesn't know the real reason Fate wants him, and as they talk, Iku and Karin come up behind them, discovering her time-traveling powers while they listen to the conversation. She didn't tell anyone before, but now, more people know. Tuta then learns not to reveal his secret to immortality to anyone because it shows the enemy how to find the weak points. In Kiri's case, someone might even kill her to go back in time. Kiri then tells them the original plan. Instead of trying to protect Tuta, they can turn the tables on Fate and attack him instead, since they know when and where he will strike. Fate is almost here, and as soon as he gets there, all Tuta has to do is just hang around the waiting area for Fate to find him. Iku and Karin will attack Fate as diversion. Kurumaru and Kiri will be the reserves, and Kiri will take him back in time to hopefully restrain him under their headquarters. Iku wants to be with her when she goes back in time to help, and she agrees, but she can't wait for them to get to her. Iku is linked to a satellite and can see everything, and Karin tells him to stay away. Evangeline isn't here, because as soon as he sees her, he would know something was up. As Tuta searches up Fate on his phone, Evangeline shows up to tell him everything instead. Fate helped everyone to set up the Mars base alongside Tuta's grandfather, Negi Springfield. All three of them were considered heroes until Negi died, and suddenly, Fate decided to turn evil. Fate is after him because of his relationship with Negi. Karin spots Fate, and Iku spots him on the camera, but someone else is pointing a gun at someone. Tuta spots him too, but he's not alone. He has Tuta's friends from the countryside. But Tuta doesn't want to stop. This is it. There is only a minute left until Fate arrives, but Tuta can't seem to focus. The satellite spots Fate going into the tower among Tuta's old friends. Everyone is ready for the ambush and waiting patiently until his friends find Tuta and run towards him. This gives the team a chance to strike while the kids are away from Fate, but just as Iku pulls out his gun, a maid puts a sword through him. Tuta's friends are here because Nikumaru is here to train for work at his uncle's place, and Mihashi is just here for company. Tuta tries to get them away from the area, but Fate arrives behind them and introduces himself, saying he knew Tuta's grandfather, making the two friends hostages, and Iku is also incapacitated by the maid with a sword. Fate continues to speak to Tuta, telling him about how he feels alone and afraid, how he is without a past, and that he might just be a nobody that will never amount to anything in the future. Fate then offers to take Tuta under his wing and make him into a great man, just like his grandfather. When Tuta refuses, then Fate proceeds to threaten the lives of his friends if he doesn't come with him. Tuta is not strong enough to beat Fate, so he has no choice but to concede defeat. Fate is finally glad to have Tuta on his side because he thinks that Evangeline is an evil woman who twists and manipulates people into her will. This sends Tuta over the edge, and he rejects Fate's offer and grabs his sword to square up to Fate. This sounds like an insult to Fate, because this is not something Negi would do, as it is too reckless and puts too many people in danger. Fate was getting ready for a fight, but Tuta just screams at the top of his lungs about a terrorist being in the building with a bomb. This makes the people get into a panic and gives Karin enough time to attack and get the kids away. Fate is surprised, but defends her strike. Karin and Tuta go in, attacking with their weapons, but he defends it with ease, but not when Tuta turns up the weight on his sword. Iku also gets a split second to attack the maid and get free to pull the trigger on the satellite gun. The shot rips through the station, and that's the cue for Kurumaru and Kiri to attack, but there are two other warriors, so Kiri has to go at Fate alone. She lands on him. Karin and Tuta also make it to her, but the other two are still stuck in their battles. But Kiri took too long and just falls off Fate after he petrifies her because he didn't know her powers. The satellite keeps firing to pin Fate to his position, and Tuta wants to attack, but he can't. Karin thinks it is not a good idea. The plan has failed and they need to retreat. Fate gives him one last chance to strike because his powers need time to recharge. This makes Tuta want to fight Fate one-on-one. Karin can't help because she gets attacked by Shaba, another mercenary. Kurumaru and Asura also square up to battle again after their fight from earlier. Iku is tangled with Tsukuyomi. Kurumaru can't land a blow because Asura is too fast and has too many blades and arms, which makes Asura a demi-human like Kurumaru. Iku is also battling with a fellow cyborg, but she seems a bit too powerful for him. That leaves Karin, who is trying to keep Kiri out of harm's way and fight Shaba. There is no way to escape, so she must attack. Emergency services are on their way due to the fire, and that's when Tuta attacks Fate using his flash stepping. Fate just blocks the move and throws Tuta across the building and appears right behind him. Fate opens a portal and brings thousands of swords raining down on Tuta, who has to defend himself from them, and he manages to get them all down, and Fate is impressed but tells him he's not as good as his grandfather. Tuta keeps attacking with everything he has, using the gravity sword and going for the strike, but Fate avoids it again and again, but he gets cut on his face. This prompts Fate to go a level higher on his attacks, but Tuta gets a call. It's Karin, asking about the countdown that appeared on Kiri's arm. Tuta thinks it's her fail-safe and tells Karin that they need to hold out until the countdown is finished. Fate brings out his swords again, but Tuta just taunts him from a distance by calling him old-looking and too weak to fight face-to-face, but Fate just gives Tuta his wish and smacks him to the ground. Fate is fed up now and wants to take Tuta by force, but Tuta tricked him into falling down right next to Kiri, who gets out of her petrified state and teleports Fate into the underground of the headquarters. Fate is trapped there with Tuta and the rest. But that's not all. Evangeline is also there, who is amused by Fate being tricked by some children. She's here to have a conversation, but he doesn't want to talk to her and gets into a fighting position. She isn't looking for a fight, and the odds are too great for him to take them all on by himself, so he quits. He offers them to answer one question each, since he knows everything in exchange for his freedom. Tuta takes the bait and almost asks a question until he gets hit over the head by Karin. Kurumaru wants to strategize, but that is not allowed. Everyone must think of a question themselves. Iku goes first and asks the reason for Fate wanting Tuta. Fate tells him that he needs Tuta to save his grandfather, Negi. Tuta had no idea that his grandfather is still alive and is pissed at Evangeline for not telling him that. Fate then tells him that saving Negi also means saving the 12 billion people that live in the solar system, throwing a wrench in the relationship between Tuta and Evangeline. Karin's turn comes and she asks who loved Negi the most, himself or Evangeline. Fate can't answer such a complicated question, but he knows that he doesn't hold love in his heart for anyone. Kurumaru asks his question. He wants to know how urgent the mission is with Negi and Tuta. The matter is not that urgent, and Tuta doesn't need to go with him this soon. Tuta's question comes last. He asks him if he is the one who killed his parents. Fate confirms Tuta's suspicion, and this brings up the dark magic inside him, but before he could do anything, Negi's spirit comes in between them. Evangeline figures out this isn't just a sent message and orders Kurumaru to find the source of connection on Tuta and take it off him to keep Negi away. Negi has something important to tell him, but since there is no time, he just tells him that Fate has lied to him just now. But before he could tell Tuta the important message, Kurumaru cuts the connection and Negi disappears. This makes Evangeline and Fate reconcile their differences for now, while Tuta screams out at his grandfather who's gone. Later on, Kiri is very mad because they worked really hard to catch Fate, but Evangeline just let him go, making all of their efforts worthless. But what really upsets her is her not being involved in the showdown at the underground dungeon with Fate and Negi. Inside, Tuta and Evangeline are walking down the hall, and he wants to know what happened to his grandfather 20 years ago. She doesn't want to answer the question, so she locks herself in her office. Someone is at the door, an older woman, Ayaka, on a wheelchair, who's accompanied by a girl named Mizora, who wants to meet Tuta. But Tuta is training with his sword and doesn't notice Shinobu and hits her bag. He apologizes to her later while having tea, but they're being spied on by Kiri and Kurumaru. Mizore then barges in from the top and makes an eye-catching entrance. She tells Shinobu to stay away from Tuta because he comes from a family of men that have a habit of collecting young women. Like his grandfather Nagi and his father Negi, she suspects Tuta to be the same way and now wants to defeat him to avenge her mother, who had her heart broken by his father. She doesn't listen to his apology and proceeds to fight him, but he throws her out of the window, but catches her before she falls and apologizes for his actions, which makes her fall for him too. She acts quickly and claims him to be her groom in order to protect other women from his deadly charm. But all that does is upset the rest of the women, and he rejects her quickly. In Evangeline's office, Ayaka is there while they have a conversation. They remember a time when all the girls of the school fawned over Professor Negi and tried to get his attention with food. He ate too much and can't move now. Back in the garden, Tuta and Shinobu were sweeping the floor when Mizore arrives, asking him for lunch that she prepared. The rest of the women are also dressed like Shinobu and sneak around to spy on Tuta as he eats the lunch that Mizore prepared for him. When they spot the cuts Mizore has on her fingers, they are impressed that she went through all of that to please Tuta. Kiri feels defeated and finally admits her feelings towards Tuta. They don't know what to do, and that's when Iku comes by with some advice. He tells them to scrub the boy's back 50 times in the sauna to make him theirs, but they don't believe him. Back in the offices, Evangeline tells Ayaka about Negi, but they don't believe it because they still think he died 20 years ago by the hands of some woman they can't mention. Ayaka tells her that even though she's scared to let Tuta go out from her protection, she needs to do it so he can explore the world on his own, even though they have a very strong bond. Iku and Tuta are in the hot spring when Iku tells him about being in a coma for 72 years, and he is technically 13, because that's when he went into a coma. All the girls are planning to scrub Tuta's back 50 times to make them theirs, despite them not knowing if it would work or not. Karin shows up first and uses a broom to scrub his back, but Kiri knocks her off him, but they leave him open for Shinobu, and she is knocked off by Mizore, who gets in a race with Kiri. But just before they finish, Kurumaru takes off with Tuta into the air. Tuta has no idea what is happening, but the girls get into a vicious fight and knock him back into the water, where he finds Evangeline, who thought he needed his back washed and just does it for him, while the girls watch. But nothing happened, which means Iku lied to them just to have a little fun with them. The girls help each other out and apologize for the way they acted around Tuta earlier, but they are not giving up to land Tuta. As the night falls, Tuta finds Evangeline in her younger form, who has a big secret to reveal. He first asks her if she ever loved her grandfather in the past, and she admits it, and she still loves him. But the Negi she loved is not the man he saw the other day. Years ago, Negi defeated a woman mage, known as the Life Maker, but she took over his being and now lives on through Negi instead. She fears that Life Maker has consumed Negi completely by now. Fate and Evangeline wanted to save him, but their methods are what split them apart. Fate did cause the death of the accident, but the people who died weren't his actual parents. He was actually created 2 years ago using Negi's DNA, making him a clone. Tuta is heartbroken. He thought his memories were just gone after the accident, but it turns out he was just a clone this whole time, and he never had any memories. But Kurumaru comforts him. He is also starting to question Evangeline's affection for him, because in his mind, she only took care of him because he is a clone of the man she loves and has nothing to do with himself at all. But then they hear an argument outside the door when Mizore and Kiri barge in, trying to be the one to protect him while they go to a martial arts tournament. They all get to the tournament, and this cheers up Tuta, who sees all the fighters here for the fight. This is actually the pre-tournament that sets up the fighters for the real tournament that will happen next year, and the final is even going to be at the top of the tower. He wants to fight, and he is eligible to enter, and if he wins, he will be given a spot in the tournament, so he rushes to sign up. Kurumaru is surprised that he is already feeling better, but Kiri didn't know that he was feeling down this whole time, but he can't tell her the reason. Tuta makes it to the organizer, but it turns out the selection is done beforehand, and he can't enter the tournament unless someone drops out. That's when Tuta finally meets Ayaka, who introduces him to her servant Chachamaru, and Mana, who is the headmistress of the school and director of the tournament. She even tells him that Negi was a teacher at the school 80 years ago, and these women were all his students. Back at the headquarters, Shinobu misses Tuta when she hears Evangeline and Karin planning to go to the capital, and she decides to leave and go too. Ayaka shows him the classroom that Negi used to track decades ago when he was only 10 years old. Sayo then jumps right in front of him and introduces herself. She was one of Ayaka's old classmates, but she is a ghost. While all of this goes down, Mizore is mad at her grandmother for taking Tuta when Kurumaru and Kiri find her. Back in the school, Ayaka can't believe that it has been 80 years since she was a student of Negi and sees so much of him in his grandson. But that's when Tuta tells her that he's not exactly a grandson. They all reassure him by saying that Negi would have accepted him as his grandson even if he is a clone. They all loved and respected Negi, and Tuta should be proud to be related to him. As the woman fawn over Tuta, Mana gets a call telling her that 2 fighters have been injured and need replacements. This is the chance for Tuta to show what he is actually made of. The girls all sit and watch, but none of them had anything to do with this. Tuta is up against a mysterious fighter named Cutlass, but Tuta sees something familiar in him. The fight is about to start, and the two face each other. Tuta has his sword and begins the attack, but Cutlass uses magic to summon a sword and strike back. As they continue to fight, Cutlass reveals himself as Tuta's brother and kicks things up into a higher level. Cutlass actually attacked the previous fighters and injured them to get to fight with Tuta. Cutlass uses his magic, and it appears that Tuta has lost the fight, but he just gets up and calls him a cheap copy. This makes Cutlass rage and hit Tuta with a strong move that cuts him in half. Everyone is worried, but they can't get involved due to the barrier surrounding the field. Tuta uses Magia Arabia and turns to his dark side, but Cutlass is not intimidated one bit. In fact, he welcomes the challenge. Tuta charges at him, but Cutlass is too agile and stabs Tuta in the stomach. He uses magic to bring down a storm of arrows from the sky onto Tuta, pinning him to the ground. Then, Cutlass proceeds to belittle Tuta, telling him that he is nothing but a bad copy of his grandfather, a desperate attempt to preserve Negi's genius, nothing but a bad product, a monster. But when Tuta hears the encouraging words from his friends, he realizes that all that matters is that he is here now, not how he got here. He punches Cutlass, discovering that she is actually a girl. But there is something more menacing coming for Tuta, a bigger threat that appeared out of nowhere, Negi Springfield. The students of Negi know that this is not actually him, but they can't help but feel the resemblance. Mana figures it out. Lifemaker is here to finally take Tuta with Aya to complete her plan. Negi asks Tuta to come with him in order to save the world, but things don't go so great when Tuta figures out that they only need him for selfish purposes. The person contacting him as a spirit was the real Negi, not Lifemaker in disguise, because the visions can only be seen by someone of his own bloodline. Cutlass is upset that Negi went to all this trouble just to contact a clone. Negi stops her and tells Tuta that he was kept away from him by his guardian Evangeline, who shows up and uses her powerful magic to break the barrier and stand between her boy and Negi. She knows that this isn't actually Negi, which prompts Lifemaker to try and take down Evangeline with all the magic she has got. Evangeline is tied up with magic from her old friends. Tuta can't step in because Jack ambushes him from above, but he is protected by Kerin and Kurumaru. Kiri gives Tuta his sword and everyone gets ready for the battle. Before they fight, the UQ holders exclaim that they can't let anyone harm their friend. Lifemaker has new members: Yue the magical detective, Nodoka the mind reader, and Jack the strongest mercenary ever. Evangeline is worried about this fight because on top of these warriors there is Negi, the most powerful of all. Negi sneezes so hard that it blows off the clothes of everyone in the arena. Shinobu arrives at the tournament but sees a dark cloud hovering over the arena. Kiri is annoyed for having to fight with little clothes on, but really she is trying to find weaknesses in their technique so they can attack them more efficiently. But Nodoka already knows the plan because she has read her mind. Nodoka and Yue are trying to convince Tuta to come with them since he is the only clone out of the 71 to survive. But when Tuta refuses, something opens a portal behind him and swallows him. Tuta wakes up in a wasteland with a thread attached to his head. He sees Evangeline in her child form, but when he runs to her, the whole scenery changes and he is greeted by Sanders, who is glad to meet him. But Tuta's sword reveals that his real name is Alberio, because he is the mage that created the sword. He is a devilish demon that even Evangeline doesn't like facing. Alberio then puts the sword in heavy gravity to keep him quiet. Alberio is here to convince Tuta to change sides and join Negi. He shows Tuta his grandfather and Evangeline as their story evolved through time. Negi and Evangeline bonded after she accepted him as her student to make him stronger. But as the training gets stronger, their bond gets even stronger and they fall in love. Tuta is so glad to see Evangeline as happy, and with a smile wider than anything he has ever seen, so he thanks Alberio for it. But this isn't a memory at all. It turns dark very quickly, and Evangeline is tied up in shadows by a woman, and Alberio stabs Tuta to stop him from freeing her. This is Lifemaker, Mage of the Beginning, Tuta's sworn enemy. They rip apart Evangeline in front of him and promise to let her go if he accepts joining Lifemaker's side in the fight. He refuses and tries to help Evangeline, but she cries because even after all these years, she couldn't have one person that she could call her own. He promises to always walk beside her forever, despite her loving someone else. Lifemaker tries to intrude, but Tuta is having none of it. He takes Evangeline because he wants to stop her suffering that's caused by Lifemaker, but he had no idea just how powerful this mage is, and he can't seem to find a way to attack her. Lifemaker is powerful here because this is a fantasy world created by her imagination, but Evangeline knows a way of fighting it using her own magic. This is a rare opportunity that they have here to attack Lifemaker in her true form, and Tuta is also eager to get the fight started. They go in for the attack, but Evangeline gets distracted by Lifemaker, disguised as Nagi, and gets tossed at Tuta, and they both land heavily on the ground. The two regroup, and Evangeline tries a powerful strike on her, but no matter what the two try, they can't seem to escape the mind games that are played by Lifemaker. He can't get himself free, even after he knew this wasn't real. He then gets saved by Asuna, who is kind of like his grandmother. When Evangeline sees her, she is shocked, because she thought that Asuna had died on Mars, but she used her connection with Tuta to free herself from death. Lifemaker tries to stop the reunion, but Asuna is too powerful, even for her. Asuna then tells Tuta that only 0.7 seconds have passed in the real world, and when he gets back to it, he will need to be ready for the real fight. Asuna tells him the weaknesses and adds that the power he needs to defeat the enemies will only appear after 37 seconds, so he must hold out until then. Then Asuna slices Lifemaker in half and sends the team back to the real world. Tuta and his friends use the information given to them by Asuna to win their individual battles against the enemy fighters. Even Tuta holds his own against Negi. The final showdown is starting, and everyone knows the plan of keeping the fighters distracted for at least 37 seconds to help Tuta charge his ultimate power. Tuta then learns that his source of power is the sounds of the dead, but before he could be defeated, Fate and Evangeline intervene and block Negi's strike. Fate uses his power to show Tuta what the real Negi looks like. Fate has found a way to free Negi from Lifemaker's control, but he needs to listen carefully, and Tuta is the way to his escape. Negi mentions that it is now too late because he has become Lifemaker now, so he must die in order to ensure that she doesn't do this to anyone again. Fate hates the idea of having to kill his friend, but there is no other way. Negi wishes to tell everything he knows to Totua, but there isn't enough time, so they want the little time he has left to be spent with his love, Evangeline. He is hurt because he could keep his promise and save the people he loved, but that is in the past, and she understands that he tried his best. Back at the battle, Fate and Evangeline try to freeze and petrify Negi, but he breaks out of it pretty quickly and gets to work putting them down one by one until Tuta gets his power level higher, just like Negi, and they proceed to fight. Kurumaru is still fighting with Ayo and Nodoka, but he can't seem to get the upper hand. The same goes for Keren with Jack, who keeps hitting her while she is on the ground. Shinobu sees Tota fighting Nagi so hard that they start breaking the tower, but Negi is too strong for him. The city even takes the beating and puts the people in danger. Tota finds his inner strength and anger and lashes out at Nagi, but before he lands the final blow, Jack stabs him from the back using a big sword. Tota seems defeated, but just before Negi lands the final strike, Kiri gets in the way, and Negi can't kill her because she will reset everything. They distract her by saying she has feelings for Tuta, and when she turns around to explain, Cutlass impales her with a sword without killing her. Everyone is defeated, and Tuta can't handle his anger as he watches Cutlass pull out Kiri's teeth, looking for pills she could use to die. But this was Kiri's plan all along, to stall them until Tuta's ultimate power hits. Tuta then wakes up to see Negi's former students attacking him, one by one, using their special moves. Negi tries to escape, but they have various attacks that usually don't work, and Negi stands firm. One of the students even heals Tuta, but Negi has had enough and fights back using his power, but the students are strong enough to hold him when they fight together. Even Evangeline is there, but this is all a diversion to incapacitate him. They are all here because all of them exist in the mind of Tuta, because they were all used to create him, not just Negi and Asuna. Negi can't believe what is going on, but these are his students, and he can't help but hold back when he sees Asuna. Lifemaker can't do anything about this fight anymore and chooses to retreat and wait for Tuta at the top of the tower. Tuta wakes up to find the arena empty and all his friends around him. Despite the damage, Jinbei has taken care of the civilians and no one is hurt, but he doesn't tell what power he used to save them all. Even Shinobu helped with the rescue. As the story ends, Evangeline and Fate know that this is not the last time they will be facing Lifemaker and go their separate ways. With everyone back at the headquarters, Tuta heads right for Evangeline's office and confesses his love for her, but she punches him instead. He wants to keep her company and asks her to marry him, but she says no because she is completely fine being on her own. All this does is piss off the other who chase him down the building. Hope you enjoyed the recap. Subscribe to the channel and check us out for more recaps just like this one, and don't forget to leave a like. Catch you on the next one for another amazing recap.